Howdy Exiles, it's me, Vashtalas, and I'm here to give you an update on my Hierophant Artillery Ballista guide, now that the 3.22 patch notes have dropped. And I'm happy to say, we did survive any nerfs. Well, not any nerfs, but we survived the most important nerf, and that was our Elemental Mastery for inverting monster elemental resistances. It was super important that that made its way through the patch notes, and it did. So we're pretty happy about that. But the nerf that we did receive was Totem Taunt enemies around them for 1 second when summoned. That is no longer going to be a Totem Mastery or available anywhere for us, for that matter. So we're a little sad about that, but it's not huge. We're still going to be able to play the build, and there is going to be a lot to talk about in this video yet again. It's going to be a comprehensive video. I've made some big sweeping changes to our pathing, and I hope you'll stick around and hear what I have to say about it. So let's get started. I'm going to start out on the passive tree and the different drop-down lists that are going to be available to you. So first off, I have us a tree for before we make our swap to Artillery Ballista. We're going to be leveling with Rolling Magma, Flame Wall, and Holy Flame Totem. And with your Rolling Magma, I want you to allocate 2 additional blue support gems. One is Arcane Surge, that you aren't going to level up. Once you get it, just put it in there, and as soon as it offers you that level, right-click it so that it doesn't, and then attach Combustion, as that's going to help us apply a stronger Ignite and lower that target's resistances, so we can spam it with more Rolling Magma Orbs. So that's going to be the leveling strategy early on. Look for those three blue link items. We will want Elemental Overload until much later on. And then once we are ready to make our swap, which is going to be right around our first Ascendancy, and after we have found ourselves a Jade Amulet and a Bow and Quiver we can equip. From there, you will also need to complete your Act 3 Library quest, to which you will purchase a couple of gems from Syosa. You will want Precision, you will want Frenzy, you will want Sniper's Mark, you will want Mana Forged Arrows. You will want Mark on Hit. I'm trying to think of everything. What else? I think that about does it. You'll also want your Artillery Ballista, obviously. Let me go ahead and check real quick. Mana Forged Arrows, Frenzy, Mark on Hit, Sniper's Mark, Anger, Precision, Frenzy. Yeah, I've said them all a couple of times now. But those are the main ones that you're going to want. And this is what your tree is roughly going to look at, or be looking like, when you get to that point. I also have it broken down beyond that as you progress through the Atlas, and I have listed some things that you can prioritize. I think in this tree I still have Art of the Gladiator. I put it this way simply because it's like close by, and if you feel like Avatar of the Hunt isn't substantial enough for you in terms of a damage gain at this point, then just know that those are there. But progressing through, you can also make a beeline for Ironwood, and I do suggest that you go through Surveillance and Panopticon, as they're just very powerful. Puts us right next to Golem's Blood. Pick that up while you're there as well. And from there, I suggest you focus on your reservation so you can fit in your additional aura and get yourself some more suppression to start easing the blows from those spells that are hitting us. After that, we will make our swap over to Critical Strike and drop Elemental Overload right around this level. You can also drop Elemental Overload earlier if you find yourself a 5-link item and want to include increased critical strikes or increased critical damage, as the inclusion of either of those would make Elemental Overload immediately obsolete. After we've made our Critical Strike swap and moved over towards Finesse and One with Nature, our late game is going to look like this. We allocate our sockets and our jewel sockets. I haven't allocated this jewel socket at Sentinel, mainly because I compared it to other socket investments, such as, one skill point, 2 skill points, 2 skill points. This is a 3 skill point socket. Do we like skill sockets? Jewel sockets. Do we like jewel sockets? Yeah, we like jewel sockets, but I have to compare, investment. And that one just doesn't seem comparatively worth it to the other ones that are available to us, and I have to judge it on that. But that about does it for the leveling trees. I have also included, as per our last video, some different variations that you can make changes as you progress your way through the end game. I also added a cluster jewel for us this time. Added an aura stack path, one path where it shows you all sorts of different life nodes are available. And that does it for the passive tree section. I'm going to move over towards the skills. So I have everything up here in gray is what you're going to be leveling with. So we have Rolling Magma with its 2 supports, which are Combustion and Arcane Surge. We have Holy Flame Totem and Flame Wall. You don't need to support them with anything if you don't want to. Frost Blink as our movement skill. Flammability to make igniting our single target easier, and lowering the resistances to really, really bump up our damage early on. And then I personally used Herald of Ash and Clarity, as it just kind of made clearing things easier, and I didn't have to focus so much on sticking around for my mana flasks to be available. Artillery Ballista, the 6-link setup is going to be elemental damage with attacks, concentrated effect, inspiration, increased critical strikes, and increased critical damage. Early on, you're going to use Grace, Determination, and then I would recommend Vol Haste, but Anger also is, arguable. I think we want both. I just don't know if we're going to be able to fit both, so I would suggest that you choose one of the 2 that I have disabled here. Precision, you should have it on an Arrogance setup so that it doesn't take up your mana, preventing you from having those 3 50% auras active. Sniper's Mark, there should be a mark on hit here. And Frenzy with Mana Forged Arrows. Steelskin or, what's it called? Molten Shell. Pick your poison. I chose Steelskin because I didn't feel like we had high enough armor to make full sense of Molten Shell yet. But if you were to use something like Iron Reflexes, you could totally do that instead, and it would feel amazing. And then you could go like Vol Molten Shell, and then you have an extra defensive layer. Blink Arrow and Flame Dash. These should be your movement skills at late game, but some people don't like Flame Dash, so feel free to stick with Frost Blink if you want. That does it for the gems section, and now we're going to go over towards items. While we're leveling, I've included the items that got me through my campaign playthrough, and a lot of them are white items. I killed a 90% more, it was like 98% more life, and 64% maximum life gained as Energy Shield, Forge of the Phoenix, on a 5-link with the bow you see me on in this character. Yeah, with this bow. And like a lot less of the gear that you currently see on the character. I killed that Forge of the Phoenix with those modifiers. And it did take a couple of the portals, which is why I didn't include it in a YouTube showcase. But we did get it down, so you can definitely do endgame with a shoestring budget on this build. It just does require a little bit of skill, I would say, on knowing what you're up against and what projectiles are coming your way and how to dodge them and stuff. I also included a late game version. Some of these unique items are going to be unachievable early on, so don't beat yourself up if you can't get them super duper early, but I think you should be aiming for them. There are some other options that I've included if you want to take a look through and see if you disagree on what I've decided will be my goals. Try not to hold these examples as a one-to-one of what you're actually going to want late game. I have just included these as like example items. This is how you're going to cap your resistances, or this is like a belt that you're going to be interested in. This is a pair of gloves or a chest piece that you're going to be interested in. Like I said, this isn't perfectly optimized, but right now this is what I think feels the best. That could change, so tune in. I will be streaming this. That does it for the late game tree. I included the flasks. I didn't really care too much about the suffixes, so pick your poison in terms of suffix besides the quicksilver, which should obviously be of the cheetah or something similar so that you can get that juicy increased movement speed. Arn's Anguish is actually a really great belt. I don't think we're going to find another source of triple damage, and we have inherent endurance charges, so I think this is the belt that's going to be our late game. And then Abhorrent Interrogation is going to come from Oshabi, which is Harvest. So that's a real pain. We don't really have a real way to farm Hiri's Ire. That's also going to be a pain, and it is going to be an expensive in-game chess piece. On the way, we could use something like a Skin of the Lords, also very expensive. Lore Weave is interesting, but it also prevents us from gaining spell suppression via a mastery for evasion. Could cause us problems, but also the maximum resistances are highly desirable. Eternity Shroud, I found it to be interesting for a little while, but ultimately decided against it because it can be very, very annoying to get everything else that we need as a shaper item. Brisk Wrap, could be fun while leveling. Don't think it's worthwhile in game. That about does it for the chess pieces. Gloves, I really don't think there's anything else to be argued for other than Abhorrent Interrogation. And as for the belt, I don't think there's anything else to be argued for. I do think we are going to want a couple of unique jewels. We will want Brutal Restraint. I don't care what string you get. Just don't break the bank. Unnatural Instinct. You're going to want this to save yourself a bunch of passive points. It may not be as much damage as actually getting Avatar of the Hunt, but those saved skill points are certainly uncomparable. So, also an expensive addition. Not necessary. Don't sweat it. Just be patient. You'll get it. It's a power spike. Rain of Splinters. Can be expensive, but incredibly targetable. So targetable it's not even funny. Just pick up Crimson Jewels and save your Vol Orbs to corrupt them. The only other thing that you should be using your corrupted orbs on early on, in my opinion, is red maps. So hoard those suckers and spam them on Crimson Jewels until you get yourself one. It doesn't have to be perfect. It could be the worst possible version ever. Just get it and go. Worry about that later on when you have currency to, throw around willy-nilly. And that about does it for items, I think. I included a R-Stack version, but I'm not really going to snooze you with that one, as it's not optimized to an even greater degree, and it's really just to show hey, these are all of the things that you can throw on to add even more R reservation efficiency and stack on Wrath or Herald or something else like that. But really not that worth mentioning in terms of something that you could mimic. That does it for items. Moving on to the notes section. These are as comprehensive as I could possibly make them. I included the foreword. It gives you a little bit breakdown as to why I included items and what they're actually meant to show you, instead of you're supposed to be following this as a one-to-one in terms of item choice. We're obviously not all going to be getting the same items, so you need to be able to extrapolate upon the information that I've given you, and you need to be able to meet, solving your own unique problems, such as resistances and suppression. It's my helmet may have 12% suppression on it, but yours has none. Or my gloves may have triple tier 1 resistances or something like that, but yours have tier 3 resistances. So it's you have to solve those problems in different ways. So don't hold the items as dogma. I beg of thee. Why Artillery Ballista? No gear requirements to get started. Great AoE. Decent single target. Low attribute requirements. It has potential for high effectiveness of added damage due to how many projectiles we're going to be firing. There's a lot of different ways to approach this build, such as I listed throughout what I've discussed already. Scales well. Late game we have up to 9 totems, giving Hierophant some juicy benefits. I want to play an on-hit Ballista that wasn't Toxic Rain or Explosive Arrow. And it's totally possible Grinding Gear Games could give us a microtransaction that makes these things shoot out hot dogs or something, right? They could be real wacky. Come on, man, give me something silly. So, anyways, not gonna lie, it's lit. Cons. What's gonna give us trouble in this build? Honestly, I think it's gonna be our main skill socket colors. It's 3 blue, 2 red, 1 green. We do want to use a Hiri's Ire late game. It's the highest damage unique chess piece. But it's an evasion chess piece, which means 3 blue, 2 red, 1 green is being incredibly copium. So what we would do to solve that late game is we would spend 100 and something chrome orbs to guarantee the 3 blue sockets off of our crafting bench. And hopefully, if we're lucky, we would get like 1 red socket and 2 green or something. And then we would go over to Varisi and research and have him hopefully turn the gem socket colors that we don't want over to white sockets. And the same could be accomplished if we were to go over towards Katarina in the Mastermind's lair for betrayal as well. But yeah, I think socket color is going to be the biggest pain point for us late game. I plan on farming out a Tabula Rasa and the Blood Aqueducts in all honesty, as that's what I'm using currently in my testing, and I feel fine. Act 1 through 3 leveling tips. This is kind of what I talked about in the tree section, but I'll detail it for you here, just so it's nice and neat. You're going to start out with Rolling Magma. Then you're going to get offered Flame Wall and Holy Flame Totem. You should use all 3. It's a lot of free damage because they're all separate skills. Look for items with 3 blue sockets and 3 links. So blue, 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 and all linked. Rolling Magma, Combustion, Arcane Surge. You can double check that in the skills section. Use Clarity and use Arcane Surge. I want to remind you guys that all of the gems that you're going to be caring about are all listed in the skills section. So be sure to check that out. Always pick up these rares. I listed out the rares that you care about before swapping over to Artillery Ballista. Scepters, Wands, Daggers, and then Bows and Quivers as well, because you're obviously going to need some of those whenever you make the swap. So other than that, it's pretty standard. Belts, rings, amulets, boots, gloves, helmets. The reason why I list all those smaller ones instead of like body armor and stuff is because you should be conserving your inventory space. Continue moving forward with as little reorganizing as possible. The worst thing that you can do is not know what you're doing and just sit in town, and then all of a sudden your afternoon is gone because you spent 4 hours trying to figure it out whenever the launch was already here. Bandits. Kill all bandits for +2 skill points. Whenever you get to Act 2, you're really kind of thinking about Alira. It's okay if you do want to do that and drop Clarity for the mana gain and the additional resistances and critical strike multiplier, but I think you will sorely miss those 2 skill points. So carefully consider your choice. Swap leveling tips. This is for whenever we want to start using Artillery Ballista. It's going to be right around our first Ascendancy, which is Pursuit of Faith. You should be choosing Pursuit of Faith first. And the reason for that is because it's going to lead us right over to a Ritual of Awakening for our second one and make Artillery Ballista feel even better, but I'm digressing a little bit. That's not important for this section. Look out for Jade Amulets on your way to this point, as you will need a little boost in Dexterity, but you get offered one in a quest, so there's absolutely no way that you won't have one, so don't stress too much. Just, pick them up if you find them. You also want to do the Library quest in Act 3. I think I mentioned that earlier, but I'll say it again here. Do the Library. You need a bunch of gems from him. Holy fuck, those patch notes. Oh, I know. But give me a sec. I'll get through them, and we'll spill the beans. Mana Forged Arrow and Frenzy are one link that you'll be picking up from Syosa. Mark on Hit and Sniper's Mark are another that you'll be picking up from Syosa. Grab Anger, Precision, Frenzy, and Sniper's Mark. It's a little redundant in the way that I explained it just now, but just make sure that you've got everything that I just said. After you make the swap, you're going to be looking out for green, blue, red, 4 link items. And those links that you're going to be putting in there are Artillery Ballista, Concentrated Effect, Elemental Damage with Attacks, and then Inspiration Support. And that is in order. Inspiration Support should come last. Use a combination of Anger, Grace, Precision, Determination. This is basically a small little section about what auras you should be caring about. I used Anger and Precision early on before I had Arrogance available to me. And then whenever I had Arrogance, I swapped Precision over to Arrogance, and then I fit in Grace and Determination, respectively, once I have Sovereignty and the Mana Mastery for 12% additional reservation. I don't know whether Heralds have merit. I don't know whether Vitality has merit in our Arrogance setup. Play around. Like I said, it's not fully optimized. Keep looking for bows and quivers with these mods. Flat elemental damage, attack speed, accuracy. We really do want at least 100% accuracy versus normal monsters, and then 95% versus evasive monsters. This is like a really good baseline threshold to hit with accuracy for any build you're playing. So rule of thumb right there. Projectile speed, bow attacks fire additional arrows, increased elemental damage with attacks, increased damage with bow skills. Critical Strike swap. Drop Elemental Overload. Buy a new Frostblink if you need to, because you're going to be losing a little bit of intelligence in doing so. It's really not that big of a deal. It's just a movement skill. Add these to the list of modifiers that you're going to be paying attention to. Critical Strike chance and Critical Strike multiplier. I know, it's really complicated. And yeah, if you wanted an actual point as to when you should be swapping to Critical Strike, it is Lethality, because that is the first Critical Strike node that is available to us, and it's probably the first point that you're going to be running into 5 links, which is when Elemental Overload truly becomes obsolete, which is the inclusion of increased critical strikes or increased critical damage. Ascendancy Order. Pursuit of Faith, Ritual of Awakening, Conviction of Power, and Divine Guidance. That will be like so. Pursuit of Faith, Ritual of Awakening, Conviction of Power, Divine Guidance. That's all you need to know. Do it. Pantheon. Major God is going to be Brine King. Minor God is going to be Ralakesh. If you wanted a alternative for Ralakesh and you didn't find bleeds that scary, I would say Soul of Aberrath, so that you can ignore Burning Ground and then just run Searing Exarch maps, no problemo. Annoints. I am going to be going with Instinct early because it's Sepia Azure. That's really, really cheap if you're not familiar with oil pricings. And if you want some late game alternatives, I have listed out more expensive options. Kind of an ascending order, not perfect ascending order, but you know, whatever. Shamanistic Fury, Primal Manifestation, additional projectiles. If you didn't like Lethality, but that's not really, you know, relevant anymore, but you should be comparing things like that in terms of what you want to save skill points on, say. Watchtowers, Charisma, Longshot. Pick your poison. Artillery, Ballista, and other mechanics. This is a juicy section, so pay attention. Try to make Artillery Ballista level 22 or higher. This gives us +1 totem, and the skill itself at that point will provide us +4 additional totems. Try to get +4 additional projectiles. I was watching a video made by Grimro for his Lightning Arrow Artillery Ballista Deadeye, and in his video he said that the sweet spot for additional projectiles and overlapping hits was +4. I won't quote the exact number of, like, you know, the way that overlap works out. He gave me, he said, like, he didn't give me, you know, any information, but he gave the viewers some sort of a percentage in terms of that overlap occurring. And I'm not that familiar, but I am aware that this is where I'm pulling that +4 additional projectiles usefulness from. So try to hit that if you can. Delay. Projectile speed will directly translate to our ability to hit targets on time. We are using ballistas, so delay will be accentuated by these 3 factors. We will summon our totem. Our totem will then start attacking. The projectiles from that totem will then land on the selected target. So that is 3 stages of delay. It's really not that bad. I just, you know, want to make you aware of the way that that occurs. Origin. Origin of the projectile is transferred to the ballista. This matters if you plan on taking advantage of, say, point blank or far shot. We are very, very capable of enabling point blank, but I don't plan on doing that. If you want to use something like the fledgling and make use of far shot via that effect, feel free to do so. Just know that that is the way it works. Target size. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. We like big targets. Ralakesh, for instance, in Act 7 is the smaller sized boss and will take a little bit longer to kill than, say, Arakali, a gigantic spider. So just pay attention as to how large your target is, and that make a little sense as to why your DPS is going up and down. Defensive layers. I've listed them out here for you. Evasion, armor, cast from damage taken setup. I mentioned before, steel skin or molten shell. Pick your poison. Spell suppression. You need 100%. If you don't have 100% and you know that you're giving something else up that could cap you for it, you should probably make that sacrifice in order to even out in that area. Endurance charges. We may not have these super late game due to On's might. Am I blanking? On's anguish. Sorry, due to On's anguish, we might not have our endurance charges late game, but on the way there, we will. It's a defensive layer. Deal with it. I'm using it. Life regeneration. We will have over 10% natural life regeneration. Just from having our totems exist, we will break 10% life regeneration. 5% damage taken from hits is taken from your nearest totem's life before you. This used to be the totem taunt number 7, but now I'm thinking that that's gone. This is probably the next most useful mastery, and it's still pretty strong. Totems do block projectiles, so they're our friends. Play behind them. Pretend that you're not the one doing damage. You drop them and you run away. It's the totem playstyle. Not everyone likes it. I'm sorry, but it's really good. Chill effect. We are going to have a lot of cold damage via our bow and all of the other flat damage from varying sources. So we will be slowing things down quite a lot and freezing some things in certain cases. Different base types. I am not confident on this section, but I did my best, damn it. So don't judge me. Bows. I'm pretty sure we want a thicket bow late game. It doesn't have the same implicit as an Imperial bow, and it is 0.5 attack speed faster, which is the main reason why I chose it. I think we do want as much attack speed as we can possibly stomach, because that just means more chances to have that inversion of resistances occur on our target. I listed all the other runners up. Imperial bow is going to be an easy 6-link early on. Short bow is going to be an easy 6-link early on. I have that listed in another section that I'll go over just shortly. For quivers in game, you should be using a feathered quiver, as that's just free damage, free quality of life. For in game on belts, you should be using a Stygian vise until you get that On's Anguish, as the additional socket will surely be appreciated for easy corrupted blood immunity off of a crappy abyssal jewel, or maybe it's just your actual in-game belt. Maybe you don't care about triple damage and you go for double damage instead via some other modifiers elsewhere. Helmets. For in-game, you want a Blizzard Crown. Blizzard. Did you hear that right? Blizzard. Blizzard Crown. And that's because it has a really nice implicit for added cold damage and raising our target's cold resistance. It's really powerful. It's almost baseline stronger than the fledgling if you get the implicit to be, I think, its maximum version. It's just a lot of flat damage, so really try and get yourself one of these if you can. Other helmets that you should be paying attention to if they drop are Lion Pelts and Nightmare Bassinets. Those are for, like, if you plan on going Aura Stacker version, because those would allow you... sorry, I'm yawning. Those would allow you to double influence with Eater of Worlds and Searing Exarch implicits to lower your main skill cost and add some extra reservation efficiency via that Eater of Worlds implicit, which for obvious reasons would enable that aura stacking playstyle. Everything else, look for armor/evasion bases, and then also hot take, Storm Rider boots if we can stomach the accuracy loss? Question mark. So they also come from ritual, just like Blizzard Crowns, in case you needed to know where those came from and were wondering. I'm really not sure if those Storm Rider boots are going to be the best decision, because, like, crap, man, that's 25% less accuracy is a whole lot, and we aren't juggernauts. We won't get that much free accuracy, but we're also not, like, hurting for it. So yet to be seen on whether or not Storm Rider boots are going to be our in-game choice for boots, but I thought to include it. Cluster Jewels. Medium Cluster Jewel should be 12% increased totem damage. Sleepless Sentries for Onslaught. It's guaranteed for 4 seconds. Who doesn't want that? It saves you a flask slot. Try to pair it with Ancestral Preservation or Snaring Spirits if you want. One offers Hinder. The other offers a bunch of totem tankiness. Large Cluster Jewel. It should be 12% increased damage with bows / 12% increased damage over time with bow skills. Prefixes that I find interesting are Arcing Shot, Devastator, Calamitous, and then suffixes are Martial Prowess or Heavy Hitter. I don't care which ones you get on your jewel. You shouldn't really be putting too much weight into this section early on, because this is for a league starter. Spending a plethora of your currency on a cluster jewel to be picture perfect is not a very league starter decision. So be aware of these modifiers' existence, but do not destroy your, don't blow up the bank in order to get one. Timeless Jewel. Go for a Brutal Restraint. Gives us a bunch of these modifiers that I listed out here for you. It really almost doesn't matter. There's very few that Brutal Restraint that aren't useful for us. I just picked up a random one, and basically every single thing was in some way, shape, or form useful for our build. So if you really, really want a perfect Brutal Restraint with all of the best modifiers that you could possibly hope for, go ahead and use this website right down here, as that is the website that I use whenever I'm personally feeling a little bit peckish when it comes to my Timeless Jewel. Alternate quality gems. I have them listed out here for you. I know they can get expensive. They're not required, but you should be aware of their existence. This guide is comprehensive after all. First one, Divergent Artillery Ballista. It gives us +1 to additional arrows. Divergent Inspiration. Great for mana troubles. Awakened Elemental Damage with attacks. Makes it so that we can run Elemental Reflect maps with no problems at all. And Animalis. Increased critical strikes. It gives us an additional 5% increased critical strike multiplier, which in my opinion is free damage. We love free damage. Labyrinth Enchants. Ideally we get Artillery Ballista fires 2 additional arrows. Artillery Ballista projectiles fall in 2 perpendicular lines instead is also fine, but I'm pretty sure we want the 2 additional projectiles instead of the perpendicular behavior. 6 Link Cheese. I'm not going to read through all of these, but these are divination cards that you should be paying attention to. And other ways that you can get your 6 Link items. They include the Porcupine, Emperor of Purity, Humility, the Chains That Bind, the Dapper Prodigy, and Geomancer's Incubators. I'm sure there's some other options, but I didn't think to be obsessive over this one specific portion of the notes section. Mana tools. I have listed out all of the tools available to you when it comes to your mana problems. It ranges from Ascendancy nodes, it ranges from passives and masteries, support gems, and item modifiers, such as the coveted non-channeling skills have -2 total mana cost. That's a really powerful one there. You're probably going to be very familiar with it across whatever build you may be playing. Problem monster mods. This is something that would have been solved pretty easily by being able to keep the totems taunt for 1 second on summon mastery, but since that is gone, we're going to have to make do without. So proximity shield plus trickster and high movement speed. This is really annoying. They're so fast, they're jumping all over the place. You have to have the totems within the proximity shield in order for the damage to count. It includes additional cold damage as a possible solution. You could stack more projectile speed and attack speed so that even though the totems aren't within the proximity shield for the full duration, they are getting out as much as they possibly could for that duration that they are. And we can also encircle the single target problem monster with our totems. We have 9 of them. We can just draw a circle around problem monsters and then leave them in there while they are dealt with. That's probably what I'm going to be doing for those guys moving forward, since we don't have that mastery, sadly. Maybe they'll do a hotfix and give it back to us. I would hope so. GGG, if you're listening, we would love that mastery back. It was really, really useful, and I don't think Chieftain is the only one who deserves to use it. So give it back. It's not fair. And then we're at deaths. It's the end of the guide. I have died a lot while playing through on this character. So don't beat yourself up. I think when I first started writing the guide and ended my playthrough, I had died like 15 times, and then surely by now I am in the hundreds. That's why I wrote the lot. I mean, let's go ahead and just do a little slash death action. Oh. I've died 123 times while trying to get this build together for all of us. So, go easy on me, man. This is like my first League Starter build that I've made, and I would say it was a success. We survived the patch notes, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be the in-game version. You want to go crit. We're an on-hit build. That's how you scale on-hit at the end. And the leveling section seems to be consistent. I think it's a fun build. We're really fast. We're capable of experimenting in a lot of different directions. Opinions to be had, right? But I'm excited. I hope you guys found this video informative. I hope you have your own build ideas cooking up inside your craniums. And I hope you will tune in next time. Maybe even tune in on League Start, because I will absolutely be on the edge of my seat until that moment. Because people are feeling a little doomer right now, but I'm excited, man. We did not get hit too hard, so fret not. Be prepared. Start practicing. The build is not looking all that much different, and we are certainly capable of reaping the benefits of the new tattoos, and maybe even the, what's it called? I forget what jewel they are called. The Nightmare Jewels. Those are going to be really powerful this time around. So if you guys aren't paying attention to those Nightmare Jewels, you should expect them to be very expensive, as the way they work with tattoos is very powerful. That's about it, though, and thanks for staying tuned. You're awesome if you did, and don't forget to give me a like, subscribe, and comment. I'm still really bad at this part. It feels so awkward asking, man. But yeah. Stream every day on Twitch, all that jazz. Join the Discord. It'll be down in the description if you aren't familiar with those. So, peace out, guys.